I have more money than I will ever spend, and I have never felt this poor. That's a man of 81 talking. He did the hard part. He saved. He stayed careful his whole life. He won the game everyone told him to play, and he would trade every dollar of it for 10 more years of the ones he spent being careful. Here's what nobody warns you about retirement. The thing that haunts people at the end is almost never an empty bank account. It's a full one, sitting right next to an empty chair. You think the danger is running out of money? The real terror is running out of time and realizing, far too late, exactly what you were supposed to do with it. These are the regrets that only arrive once you can no longer fix them. There are 6. I'm going to walk you through each one, and the last is the one that quietly breaks people. Because one detail changes everything about whether they're your regrets too. You're still young enough to hear this. He wasn't. The first regret almost never looks like a mistake. It looks like the smart, safe move, taking Social Security the moment you turn 62. The logic feels bulletproof. Take the money while you can. A bird in the hand. Who knows how long you'll even be around? But here's what that safe choice actually locks in. Claim at 62, and your check is cut by about 30%. Not for a year, not for a decade. For the rest of your life. Meet David. He took it at 62. The deposit hit his account, and it felt like winning. Now watch the other door. Susan waited. She bridged those few years with savings and kept working part-time, and she turned her benefit on at 70. Put their checks side by side. On the same work history, David's early check is around $1,400 a month. Susan's is closer to $2,500. Same career, same lifetime of paying in. That's over $1,000 a month every month for as long as they both live. And unlike almost every other decision in retirement, this one is nearly impossible to undo. You're probably thinking you'd rather have the money now than gamble on living longer. It isn't a gamble on dying early. It's insurance against living too long. The one risk that actually bankrupts people. The move, unless your health or your bank account forces your hand, treat every year you delay as a guaranteed raise you can never outlive. David didn't see it as a choice. He saw a number and he grabbed it. 20 years later, that grab is the quietest, most expensive thing he ever did. And it set the pattern for the second regret, the one that costs you something money can't measure. The most expensive words in the English language aren't "I want that." They're "we'll do it someday." Someday we'll take the trip. Someday we'll see the grandkids more. Someday when the timing is better. Here's the trap hiding inside that word. Retirement isn't one long, even stretch of good years. It comes in 3 stages, and only the first one is really yours. The go-go years when you can still climb the stairs and carry the suitcase. The slow-go years when you'd rather stay closer to home. And the no-go years when the world shrinks to a few rooms. The cruel part? That first stage, the only one where someday is even possible, is far shorter than anyone plans for. Often it's 10 good years, maybe 15. David kept his list. Italy, the national parks, the long drive with his wife. Every year he told himself next year, after one more market, one more repair, one more better time. Then his knees went, then her heart, and the window he was so sure would stay open just quietly closed, with the list still on the refrigerator. You might be thinking there will always be time to slow down and enjoy it later. Later is exactly the lie. Later is the no-go years, watching the trip you saved for on a television. The move, front-load the go-go years on purpose. Spend them while your body still says yes. The money will almost always still be there. The knees will not. Susan went to Italy at 65, when the stairs were still easy. David has the money for 10 Italies. He no longer has the legs for one, which leads to the regret that traps the most careful savers of all, the ones who did everything right. Here's a pattern that should stop you cold. So many lifelong savers reach the end with most of that money still sitting there, untouched. They didn't run out. They ran scared, because saving isn't just a habit. After 40 years, it's an identity, and nobody hands you a switch that flips it off the day you retire. So the fear that built your nest egg quietly turns on you. Every dollar spent feels like a wound. The cruise gets postponed. The old car gets one more year. The thermostat stays low. Not because the money isn't there, because letting go of it feels like dying a little. That's David at 81, a balance most people would envy, and a life he kept deferring to a later that finally ran out of road. You're probably thinking being frugal is a virtue, not a regret. Frugality that protects you is wisdom. Frugality that outlives its purpose is just fear wearing a respectable coat. At some point, refusing to enjoy what you earn stops being discipline and starts being the regret itself. The move, build an actual permission to spend into your plan, a number you're allowed to enjoy, guilt-free every single year. Saving was the first half of the job. Spending it well is the half nobody trained you for. Susan gave herself that permission at 65. David is still saving at 81 for a someday that is never, ever going to come. And underneath these first three regrets, a deeper one is already forming. The one that decides whether the years you have left feel like freedom or like a slow fade. This regret has nothing to do with money, and it blindsides the people who prepared the hardest. They spent 30 years planning what to retire from. They spent 0 minutes planning what to retire to. Here's why that's so dangerous. For decades, your work quietly handed you 4 things you never had to think about: a reason to get up, a place to be, people to see, and someone to be. Retire, and all 4 vanish on the same Friday afternoon. David counted down to that Friday for years. The party was warm, the card was signed, and then Monday came, and the calendar was simply blank. The phone that rang all day went quiet. Within a year, the sharp, capable man his coworkers knew had started to fade. Not from his body, from the sheer lack of a reason. You might be thinking, rest sounds wonderful after a lifetime of work. A vacation is wonderful, but a vacation is only a break from a life you're returning to. Retirement without a purpose isn't a vacation. It's a room with the lights slowly going out. The move, build what you're retiring to before you leave what you're retiring from. A project, a cause, a craft. People who expect you on a Tuesday. Structure isn't the enemy of freedom in retirement. It's the thing that keeps freedom from turning into a slow fade. Susan retired to something. A class she taught, a garden, grandchildren she showed up for on a schedule. David retired to a recliner. Same pension. 2 completely different final chapters. And a fading purpose leads directly to the regret people swear they'll never make. Right up until the day their body sends the bill. Every regret so far you could soften with enough money. This is the one you can't. Your health is the only asset in retirement that money cannot rebuild once it's gone. Here's the quiet arithmetic almost nobody runs. You can live a long time and still lose the part that matters. Because how long you live and how long you live well are 2 very different numbers. For most people, the last decade of life is spent in declining health. That's the gap. Years on the calendar your body can no longer really use. David spent his working life trading his health for money, the skipped checkups, the warning signs he was too busy for, the walks he'd take once things calmed down. It was a good trade right up until it wasn't. Now he has the money to fix almost anything, except the one thing he actually needs fixed. You're probably thinking you'll deal with your health once you finally have the time. That's the exact trade David made. The cruel twist is that the time you're waiting for only exists if the health does first. The move? Treat your health as the highest yield investment you own. The walks, the sleep, the checkups, the strength. Fund them now while the compounding still works in your favor. A smaller nest egg and a body that works beats a fortune you're too unwell to spend every single time. Susan invested in her body at 60. David is trying to buy his back at 81 and finding out the one thing his money was never able to purchase. Which brings us to the last regret. The one I told you breaks people. The one David would trade every dollar and every healthy year to undo. Remember the empty chair from the very beginning? Here it is. Of everything a retiree grieves at the end, it is almost never the money. Not the trips, not the health. It's the people, the ones he kept meaning to call. The friendships he let quietly fade because there was always more time. The grandchild's game he missed for one more day at the office. The wife he was too busy for in the years he assumed they'd both have forever. David has a full bank account and a calendar full of funerals. He goes to them now, one after another, and each one is the same private sentence. I always thought there'd be more time. Here is the truth underneath all 6 regrets, the one that ties them into a single knot. Look back at them, claiming too early, waiting for someday, never letting himself live, no purpose, neglected health, people let slip. Every one of them is the same mistake wearing a different face. He didn't lose any of it to bad luck. He lost it to a single word. Later. Money was never his problem. Deferral was. He spent his whole life certain the important things could wait. And one by one, quietly, they stopped waiting for him. That's the terror in the 81-year-old's voice at the start. Not that he ran out of money, that he ran out of the only thing money was ever supposed to buy. Time with the chairs still full. Here's the one difference between David and you. The single detail that changes everything. You're not 81. You're hearing this now. Every regret on this list is permanent for him. Not one of them is permanent for you yet. The social security choice you haven't locked in. The trip still sitting on your refrigerator. The permission to actually or spend what you saved. The purpose you could start building this year. The health you can still fund. The call you could make tonight. The only regret you can never fix is the one that already happened. And so far yours haven't. So do one thing this week, not someday. This week, make the call, book the trip, run the numbers on waiting, write down what you're retiring to, pick up the phone, because the tide of years goes out on everyone. It will on you too. The whole point is to reach the end with the chairs still full, and to know when you look back that you didn't spend your one life waiting for a later that never came. You still have time. He'd give anything to trade places with you. Don't waste what he can't get back. I'll see you in the next one.